About 3 years ago, I shared for the very first time about vitamin A or hypervitaminosis A in beef liver. And then the internet showed that they were not so very nice. I shared because we started seeing in practice that people were doing hair mineral tests, their copper and sometimes their chromium was way too high. And in this video, I'm going to share a more succinct view of all of the different vitamin A videos, interviews I've done in the past to share why there is risk with eating too much beef liver or any type of organ meats, and specifically the liver and kidneys. I now eat a lot of meat, and so do they. If you want to thrive, you need to eat meat. Meat is required. Hey guys, my name is Judy Cho and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. And I have a private functional medicine practice where we have worked with over 2,500 clients and patients get closer to root cause healing. And it often starts with the Carnivore Cures all meat elimination diet. So a couple years ago, we started working on a low vitamin A protocol because for the people that actually trusted my work, and thank you for that, and looked into the research of Grant Genereux, they found that there was truth in this vitamin A toxicity and maybe even copper because of consuming too much vitamin A or liver, maybe being exposed to a lot of vitamin A when their childhood, taking Accutane or retinol. And we sort of got busy. And so we only shared some protocols with our actual patients we worked with. We finally got to making the guide. And so I wanted to share a little bit of what's in the guide, not because of the couple dollars we would make on the guide, but really because it's a great summation of all the information we were sharing on this channel in interviews and written articles about the vitamin A toxicity risk. And I think this guide does a really good job in showing the numbers and why it actually may be a concern. When I first started sharing, I will tell you that there were a lot of beef liver supplement companies that they ridiculed me literally online. And I would actually pull up some graphics, but I don't want to play that game, where they shared that you could eat like 4,000 ounces of liver or something like that, or something crazy like that, and that you would never get hypervitaminosis A. I've noticed that over the years, their message has changed to half an ounce. So I'm really glad at least they're recommending that. I think after you watch this explanation of hypervitaminosis and really even copper, that there are true risks in over consuming even a nutrient rich food. Okay, so this guide is not fully finished, but by the time this video airs, you will see it. And I'll put the link in the show notes if you do want to purchase the guide. But there's a lot of information in here, and I will try to go through the biggest things to give you an understanding of why eating too much liver is actually not a good thing. So, the signs of excess vitamin A are actually very similar to the signs of low vitamin A. And I am going to have Grant Genereux back on. I think he's been eating a no vitamin A, so not even low, but no vitamin A diet for over 10 years, proving that vitamin A is not an essential vitamin. I'll have him on to let him share his own story. But in acute hypervitaminosis A, you can see these symptoms. So it's headaches, blurred vision, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, peeling of skin, abdominal pain, chronic hypervitaminosis A. So this is longer term that your body has been storing, especially your liver is storing vitamin A. And so it's the peeling of the skin, red patches on the skin, lack of hair growth, peeling of the mucosal membranes, pain and tenderness of the bones, and then irritability, sleep disturbances. So if you suffer from any of these things, and obviously there's many other chronic illnesses that can also cause these things, it would not hurt to try a low vitamin A diet for a while. Now, it takes a very long time for vitamin A to be depleted from your system, but still, we have cases in our practice that when they went low vitamin A, they started noticing a difference right away. It doesn't fully heal everything, but they do notice a difference pretty quickly. Really simply put, there are different types of vitamin A. So when people say that you have so much vitamin A in carrots, that's actually not a true statement at all. There is beta carotene, which is a provitamin A, and you would need good gut function or a certain type of gene so that then that beta carotene is converted to vitamin A. So if you were to see a supplement bottle that said beta carotene or carotene version of vitamin A, it's a less assimilated version of vitamin A because it needs to get converted to the version that your body can use. Liver and all animal-based foods has the formed vitamin A. That's why cod liver oil and beef liver and chicken liver have a lot of vitamin A, and it's in the version that your body would use automatically. I did a write up that shares a lot about vitamin A accumulation in the body, and I talk about the recommended daily amounts. So, the recommended daily amounts just means that if you consume that much, that is sort of the way that you can have health, not optimal health, but just health. And then if we understand that standard care may not have our best interests, so may not have the best interest that we are our healthiest or that we are our most well. Yet the Food and Nutrition Board that used to be part of the Institute of Medicine, so they created these tolerable upper daily amounts. And basically, it's so that there's not a risk of toxicity. So these people that don't always have our best interest still created a upper limit for certain nutrients that may, whether it's in supplement form, maybe the nutrition on a nutrition label, or because of potential toxicity risks, they created these upper limits for certain vitamins. And it says it down here. The upper limit for vitamin A applies to the preformed vitamin A only. Preformed, meaning liver, all the animal foods. The upper limit for vitamin E applies to any form of supplements. And so it goes on and on about the nuances of what the upper limits mean. So if you look here, there are tolerable upper limits based on the age. And so with vitamin A, you could see these are tolerable upper limits, meaning that if you are, for example, a 1-year-old child, the most vitamin A you should be consuming a day is 600 micrograms of vitamin A, or you are risking toxicity. And so as you get to an adult, there's obviously much more. The adult amount from ages 19 to 70, you could get to 3,000 micrograms of vitamin A. But if you notice here, which I think this is so fascinating, in pregnancy, you have to actually consume less because of the risk of pregnancy and vitamin A issues. And there are studies that show that you can have deformations because of excess vitamin A. And yet we recommend liver to pregnant women because we say that they need the folate in liver. And actually, beef liver doesn't even have a lot of folate. So I'm going to even show you that in this conversation. So just to make clear what this data all means, because I'm going to show you tables in a second. So the RDA is basically consume at least this much so that you can have your sufficient levels of vitamin A. And then these are, if you eat more than this, it's actually possibly toxic for your body. So you can see from a 19 to 15-year-old as a male, they recommend 900 micrograms of vitamin A. And then the toxicity level for that same age group is 3,000. So there's a big difference, right? So 900 is sufficiency, but they know that 3,000 and above is probably excess and can actually cause toxicity. So vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin that accumulates in the body and is extremely difficult to remove excess when there's a constant influx. This is especially true for carnivores who consume a higher fat diet and also consume vitamin A. Why this information is important is it's not just about the beef liver. You have to think of your total accumulation of vitamin A in your history. The human body stores 80 to 90% of the vitamin A in the liver. So what happens when the liver is at vitamin A capacity? Does it impact the liver's function? The half-life of vitamin A is said to be anywhere between 12 days to 200 and 300 days. Now imagine if you're giving your animal vitamin A or liver or organ meats. So is their liver storing excess vitamin A as well? Grass-finished meats tend to have more vitamin A because they're eating the beta carotene. But if you think about it, as a human, we get so much vitamin A from these tretinoin treatments, Accutane, retinol products. And then for the longest time, vitamin A was considered a nutrient that was depleted. So they were fortifying and still fortify milk, cereal, and all of our grains with vitamin A. They have found recently that vitamin A is no longer a nutrient that's depleted, so they have removed it from the nutrition facts. So if you see a new nutrition fact on any package, they usually don't have vitamin A anymore because, again, it is not a deficiency. Even though most people think we are deficient in vitamin A, that is actually not a true statement. So then the biggest sources of vitamin A or pro-retinol now is beef kidneys, liver, chicken liver, and cod liver is huge. The concern I was having is when I was doing the hair mineral test and then later on the SpectraCell test and other cell specific tests of nutrient status, we were seeing these imbalances with the vitamin A. If your liver has to store it in a long period of time, there is a chance that it's not always reversible. That is why, again, I started bringing up this vitamin A conversation. So I just want to show you a few foods that also have vitamin A. Eggs have a little bit, cheddar cheese, whole milk, ribeye has a very little, and then Cheerios has a lot. Look at the difference. So an egg, one large egg has 73 micrograms, but a plain cup of Cheerios has 242 micrograms. The child's tolerable upper limit was 600. So if they're eating Cheerios with milk, they're already at 340 micrograms. And then if they have cereal twice a day, you could see they're already over that tolerable upper limit. That's not even the recommended daily amount. So when we are feeding children liver, which we'll get to, again, it's probably going to be in excess. I'm not going to touch on this for long. You can pause the video here, but this is the phases of liver detox. So there is a step-by-step approach to detox, the liver detoxes. So for example, any fat soluble toxin, it cannot just remove it. It has to go through the phase 1 detox, and then it goes through phase 2. So think of it like shampoo and conditioner. Some just need shampoo and they could clear out the system, but some need shampoo and conditioner and then clear out. And the more that you are burdening the liver, the harder this becomes. Or if you don't have enough nutrition, you could see all the nutrition listed here, like B vitamins, folic acid, antioxidants, fat soluble vitamins, NAC, and enough raw materials need to be in the body so that you can even support this detox that the liver has to go through. There are way more toxins in our life now than there used to be. And so maybe adding excess liver again can be a further impact on this whole liver detox because again, it has to also store the vitamin A. Okay, so now let me go through just the nutrients in beef liver. So this is based on a standard serving, and a standard serving is 100 grams, and 100 grams is equal to 3.5 ounces. I know most people don't eat 3.5 ounces, but again, it gives you context. So I'm gonna pull up my handy calculator. For 3.5 ounces of beef liver, that is 4,968 micrograms of vitamin A. So we know for children, again, anything above 600 is considered the tolerable upper limit. For adults, I think it was 3,000. So if you divide that by 3.5, so 1 ounce of beef liver has 1,400 micrograms of vitamin A, 1,400. So then if we go back to our calculator, 1 ounce of beef liver has 1,400 micrograms of vitamin A. So for children, you can see any child under the age of 8 is already getting a surplus of excess vitamin A, meaning that there is toxicity every time they're eating 1 ounce of liver. And even if you give them half, that's 700, but that's not including eggs, dairy, which most children eat some kind of dairy, cheese, and if they're eating Cheerios, hopefully they're not, but you can see that you can get an abundance of vitamin A. And then for adults, yes, the maximum is 2,800. And again, this is tolerable upper limits. The recommended daily amounts are much smaller. For an adult, the recommended daily amount is 900. So by eating 1 ounce of liver, you're having 1,400 versus the 900 they recommend for a male and then 700 for a female. And then as an adult, you don't know if you've already had a lot of vitamin A accumulation. A lot of adults eat more than 1 ounce of liver. And so again, the concern is it too much vitamin A? Now, I want to be fair and bring up chicken. So chicken, you can see, is slightly better. So instead of 1,000 per 1 ounce, it'll be a little bit less than that. So it does have a little bit less of vitamin A. This whole episode is not about copper, but I do want to touch on it. So copper has 1,000% of your daily value. So if you were to divide that by 3.5, you're getting 300% of your daily value for copper. So, and that's again, just consuming 1 ounce. So what if you are consuming a lot of beef liver? I will say one thing about copper: in excess, it competes with zinc. And zinc actually has to be, I think it's 4-to-1 compared to copper, but you could see the zinc levels is super low. And you need zinc for so many reasons, for your immune function, but you especially need it for gut function. In order to produce hydrochloric acid or your stomach acid to break down your meats and then assimilate nutrients later in the small intestine, or to inhibit some of the toxins that may come in your foods. The stomach acid could kill some of that bacteria or toxins that come in. But without zinc, it will not happen well. And so when you're consuming a lot of beef liver, you are impacting zinc. And if you're consuming more than 1 ounce, when 1 ounce is already 300% of your daily value, are you overdoing copper? Now, another thing people will say is that, well, all the fat soluble vitamins balance, but if that's a true statement, which it is actually, but vitamin A is at 552% of the daily value. The vitamin D is at 1%, and vitamin E is at 2% or 2.7%, and vitamin K is at 2.6%. So, how is vitamin A balanced with beef liver? Because it's not. And again, then there's the competition of what is vitamin A doing when D, E, and K are low. Now, with chicken liver, one reason I like chicken liver over beef liver is because the copper is not in excess. And yes, it's still higher than zinc. So copper is at 54% daily value. But if you were to divide this by 3.5, so by eating 1 ounce of chicken liver, you're only getting 15% or 16% of your copper's daily value. And the zinc, it should still be higher, but you're getting zinc from other meats as well. The balance is a little bit better, but it does not justify, even with chicken liver, the vitamin A levels. The vitamin A levels are still high. And by the way, if you do want vitamin C, chicken liver is the way to go. You could see it's 20% of your daily value at 3.5 ounces. If you do need vitamin A or you do need a little bit of copper, there are other foods you can consume. Pacific oysters is one. So the vitamin A, as you can see, is not high. It has an abundance of copper, but it also has an abundance of zinc and selenium and all of these other minerals. The egg has a ton of minerals. I know not everyone can tolerate eggs. So I think 3.5 ounces is about 2 large eggs, but look at the selenium. 2 large eggs gives you 56% of your selenium's daily value. That is amazing. It has molybdenum, again, another nutrient that is very needed for detoxing. But you could see the zinc and the copper are a lot more balanced. The vitamin A, D, E, and K are a little bit more balanced. I wish it had more vitamin K, but it still has a good amount of vitamin D and vitamin E, and even more so than liver does. But it doesn't have the risks as vitamin A in beef liver. So after I learned about all of this, my recommendations changed from having beef liver and just beef to this new animal variety, or what I like to call the rainbow of meats. Again, if you are intolerant or sensitive to certain foods, obviously the new meat part or this new section doesn't work perfectly, but you can get all of your nutrients, most of it covered, by eating pork, sardines, salmon, chicken wings, oysters, eggs, ribeye, or some type of red meat, and butter. And you don't have to just eat beef, because look at beef's deficiencies. And I literally did the percentage by daily values. But look at the excess in copper. By eating beef liver alone, which is basically 24 ounces of beef and 2 ounces of liver a day, and this is beef liver, you would have 704% of your daily value of copper. Your vitamin A would be 314% of your daily value. The biotin is also in excess. Whereas the other side, you have the sufficiency and less of the excess. And you could see that there's also a deficiency in eating beef alone. B1, magnesium, vitamin E, K, D, folate. Folate, when I thought beef liver is rich in folate, but you only have 5% of your daily value, and calcium, vitamin C, and omega 3s. But if you again ate the rainbow of meats as a nutritionist, this is the way to eat ideally long term. Now, as we're talking about folate, I want to touch on it because there is this belief, this notion, I think it's just really great marketing from the beef liver companies, but there is this notion that folate is rich in beef liver, and it's actually not really true. So if you had 100 grams, again, that's 3.5 ounces of chicken liver, you would have 147% of your daily value. If you had 1 ounce of chicken liver, you would have 42% of your daily value. So that's pretty good. If you have the MTHFR mutation, you may still need methylfolate. You could test your homocysteine, you could test other markers to see where your folate levels are. But eating organ meats usually is not enough, and we have seen that in our practice. But if you look at beef liver, for 1 ounce, you would get 21% of your daily value. So then are you going to eat 3.5? Because even 3.5 only gives you 73% of your daily value. So then what about all the vitamin A? There are other options for folate as well. So one large egg gives you 7%, lamb chops give you some, salmon and oysters. But most people that are imbalanced with their folate usually have the MTHFR mutation, and then you probably need to supplement with methylfolate. But why are we chasing folate? And then why are we chasing it with beef liver when it's actually much lower from apples to apples, 100 grams, which is 3.5 ounces to 3.5 ounces. Chicken liver has double the amount of folate, yet we are marketed to consume beef liver. But you can see again here that the chicken liver has much more folate than beef and has a little less vitamin A. Not enough to be safe, but has much less. And then the copper levels and B12 are a lot more realistic as well. And then we did research on folate. Now, I'm not picking on Vital Proteins. I apologize for that. I didn't want to pick a carnivore brand and get in trouble. So we just picked this one and we had the supplement facts. So in order to hit your folate levels, you would have to consume 32 capsules of this liver supplement, 32 capsules of this supplement to hit your folate levels. But look at the vitamin A risk. At that level, you would be at 12,000 micrograms. In this particular bottle, there's 120 capsules in the bottle for $38. And so if you were to divide 38 divided by 120, that's 31 cents per capsule, which then in order to hit your daily value, you would spend $10 of supplements. And again, you would have to consume 32 capsules. So in less than 4 days, you would be done with that bottle to hit your folate. Or you can have your fresh chicken liver, which on average costs about $3, but that would cost you about 48 cents to hit your daily value. So again, you can see the difference in the cost. So all to say, this whole beef liver for folate, for all of these different nutrients, it's more of a gimmick because the amounts you would have to consume are a lot to get those recommend daily allowances. And then you are risking vitamin A toxicity, copper toxicity, possibly chromium, and then vitamin B12. Just something to think about. In this guide, we have a list of highest vitamin A foods. So it is in the order. Again, it's the serving size of 100 grams or 3.5 ounces. You could see how much more excess you are than the recommended daily allowance. For females, it's 700. For males, it's 900. So we put the RDA at 800. And so you could see the excess. I mean, even if you're eating goat cheese, it's on the higher end. And then imagine you're eating it with liver. It is so easy to go really high in vitamin A. We share multiple meals where if you want to just get to the 25%, so you're trying to eat as little vitamin A as possible. I mean, you can't even eat liver at that point. So at 25% RDA for women, your beef liver consumption would be 0.07 ounces. So you can see again how little that is to hit the RDA, and you wouldn't even be able to include eggs at this point. For men, it's a little bit more because you can consume 900 versus women, it's the 700 micrograms. But again, the liver amounts are so small. So the beef liver, it's 0.17 ounces, and then beef liver, it's 0.15. This example for women shows 700 micrograms. So all of the vitamin A that the recommended daily allowance recommends, and it has 0 liver. And you could see that you still get it. So it has butter, 2 tablespoons, pork, 5 slices or bacon, 4 eggs, small, 2 tablespoons of butter at lunch, and then 2 ounces of shrimp, 4 ounces of ribeye. That is very under eating in my opinion. And then beef tallow for dinner and lamb chops, and then a glass of milk and just half a cup. So not even a full glass of milk. But that alone, by adding butter, by adding eggs, and by adding whole milk, you still hit the 700 micrograms of vitamin A. So you could see again, if you add any organ meats to this meal, you would be starting to hit more of the tolerable upper limit. So the majority is coming from butter. And if it's grass finished or grass fed butter, it would be higher because the cows are consuming grass and beta carotene. And then the other top source is eggs. The biggest reason I shared about the vitamin A hypervitaminosis A was because of the children. I used to share my children consuming chicken liver pate. And when you make it a pate, you're even consuming way more liver because the butter makes it so easy to go down. And then you're using butter, and the butter also has vitamin A. I wanted to share these meal options with children, and you can see how much vitamin A they're getting from other foods. So for a 1 to 3-year-old, their recommended daily allowance is 300, and even half an ounce would be 1327. And there are some parents in the wellness space that feed a ton of liver to their children, and I think it's not ideal. So if you were to just for breakfast feed your child butter, 1 teaspoon, so it's very small, some bacon, 3 slices, and 2 small eggs, then 4 ounces of ground beef, and then 3 ounces of chicken and some cheddar cheese, that already hits their vitamin A amounts. Again, I think you can eat a little bit more than this and not get to the tolerable upper limit, but it just gives you context that without eating any organ meats, you already are hitting the vitamin A. So at what point is it toxicity? We did the same thing for 9 to 13-year-olds because they can consume 600. But again, it's very similar. You hit the targets by having now 1 tablespoon of butter instead of the teaspoon. And you have it for breakfast and lunch and then have some cheese. Because a lot of the dairy is fortified with vitamin A, there will be excess vitamin A. In a nutrient dense child that the mom wants to do good or the dad wants to do good, and then you add liver to this, what is it doing to the body when half an ounce has 1,327 micrograms when the daily upper limit is 900 micrograms? Yet, if we feed a child between 9 and 13, so even 13-year-olds, giving half an ounce is 1.5 more than the tolerable upper limit for this age. I see the typo. We're going to change it. And then we did menus on the tolerable upper limit. So this is like anything exceeding these amounts, the child would be getting excess vitamin A. It just has eggs, sausage, cheddar cheese, butter, salmon, ground beef, whole milk, just a cup. And they're already at 600 micrograms. If you feed the child Cheerios, it will surpass the upper limit. Now imagine adding liver, whether it's beef liver, cod liver, chicken liver, they are super, super high. And these are the signs of excess vitamin A. If you grew up on grains that were fortified, if you grew up consuming dairy, milk, cheese, and then you also use those retinol products or the tretinoin or the acne medications, how much vitamin A is your liver being impacted by? If you are on a carnivore diet and no matter what you're doing, your liver enzymes are not dropping, it could be because of the vitamin A. It's not always the case, but it's something that you may want to consider. And you can always try a low vitamin A protocol for a while and then see if your health improves. No matter which way I slice this conversation of liver, organ meats, vitamin A toxicity, and copper, there is really no reason to consume these organ meats. But even taking those capsules are not going to give you the half an ounce unless you consume many of those capsules. And then you're risking vitamin A. So unless you're eating the real organ meats and in very small doses and tracking your other nutrients, it is a risk that sometimes too good of a thing can be toxic. And then you have to trust your animal that you are consuming. I'm not really all about pasture raised or grass finished. Of course, those are the most ideal, but we've seen healing with just grain finished, most basic types of meats. But if we know that humans get fatty liver, I assure you that cows and animals get it too that are eating the wrong diet. And then if you're buying liver from the grocery store that's just grain finished, how do you know that you're not eating a liver that had fatty liver disease? I know that there are some people that say liver is not a detox or storage of toxins. That is absolutely false. First of all, if we know through what I just showed you of the phases of liver detox, when they process the animal, how do you know what part of the phase it's in? So even if it doesn't store a lot of the toxins, which it does store a lot of the toxins, it also stores it in the fat, but it does store it in your liver and kidneys. But when your liver and kidneys are detoxing and the animal gets processed, how do you know what stage of the detox process it's in? So with all of these things, I know that no matter how you slice it, 3.5 ounces or the one standard serving size of organ meats is so nutrient dense compared to beef. But we don't eat that way. Most people don't eat 3.5 ounces of organ meats. Even if they eat one, there are risks of hypervitaminosis in copper and vitamin A. And we don't eat just 3.5 ounces of steak. We eat 16 ounces or more. So the measurements of comparing apples to apples of or steaks to steaks of the nutrient density in organ meats and steaks or salmon is not the same. You cannot compare organ meats of 3.5 ounces and steak of 3.5 ounces or salmon of 3.5 ounces. No one eats that way. And so that's where I think this whole conversation of nutrient density in organ meats is flawed. One, you have to make sure your liver that you're getting is clean and trusted and the cleanest it could be and safest. And then secondly, if you're getting it from capsules, your 6 capsules in one day is not an ounce of liver. It is not. And then if you eat more than that to get your folate levels, you're going to risk vitamin A. And if you're getting folate from beef liver, you could get double the amount in chicken. So why are we then consuming beef liver? I am not out to get beef liver. If you've grown up with it and you feel fine, that's great. But I felt this moral dilemma when I was recommending families consume beef liver and chicken liver because it is the most nutrient dense, and making it in pâtés to hide the liver or swallow it frozen or to buy the capsules, worst case. No, actually, no one needs to be eating organ meats, or at least specifically the liver. When I first shared this information, I was madly hated on because it's supposed to be the power food of the carnivore diet. But when we see things in practice and we work with the one-on-ones that get impacted, and then we see the data through functional tests and labs, then I know that what I'm standing on is truth. And the data can always change, but there is truth in the amounts of vitamin A in beef liver. And when you are trying to get to better health, and now you're poisoning yourself with an inundated amount of nutrients, it's probably not a good idea. We all know that we should probably not be taking 20 multivitamins in a day. So if we know that, why do we think just consuming beef liver and more of it is beneficial for us? And cod liver is actually worse because the liver is so small and yet we're consuming a lot more of it. We do not in any case recommend cod liver or cod liver oil. You are risking hurting yourself, impacting your liver and your detox pathways. And if you're trying to get to root cause healing, it's probably not this way. I think beef liver, the whole liver capsule market, has become a $100 million industry. And it makes sense. You could buy 4 ounces of liver from the grocery store for a few dollars, but it costs $40 to buy 1 bottle of liver capsules. And for what? It's not going to give you the folate. It's going to give you excess B12, excess vitamin A, excess copper and chromium. And then there's all these other deficiencies. So again, why are we consuming it? And I think it is the greatest marketing that has ever happened in the nutrition, holistic health, wellness space. I'm really glad we did the guide, not so that you guys necessarily buy it, but it finally gives the summation of all the information we've been working towards in all the various videos, but now you have it all together. In our practice, if there's even one person that can benefit with our clinical pearls, with the nuance that we find, we will absolutely share that, because if one person can heal because they are consuming liver or organ meats because they think that's the way they're going to get out of their chronic illness, I'm letting you know that it's probably not going to be the thing that will heal you. And in fact, you're probably wasting your money and risking all this other stuff that I just brought up. If you feel great on organ meats, again, I think it's super important to trust your own body's wisdom. But if you have to force it, I say take that as a clue. I think I'm a lot more bold than I used to be. I used to fear rocking the boat, but now I stand on truth and I stand for the people that are ill. And if our goal is to help people get to root cause healing, I will take a stand and I will share truths that may not be liked by everyone. But if our goal is to help people in the wellness space, then that's absolutely what we will be doing. All right, guys, make sure to eat a lot of meat, limit the organs, especially livers and kidneys, because your body is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.